So good morning to all of you and welcome back to the Namaste experience. It's so wonderful to have all of you join with us. I see some new faces out here. Most of all, I see only one face, the face of the one, the only one that could ever be true, whole, complete, right here, right now. That's what we celebrate together. Doesn't seem like this wants to work today. Oh, maybe it's not plugged in. Let's see here. Maybe that's our lesson today. We have to be plugged in. Not plugged in. Well, we seem to be going on our own. We seem to be doing our best to make it on our own, but not much ever really happens, does it? Just the illusion of a happening. The feeling that we're moving in some direction, but we end up being like that dog that is tied to the stake in the middle of the yard. We've talked about that before. Imagine a dog that's tied to a stake and runs in a circle as fast as can be, convinced that it's going somewhere because it's going so fast. That's the perceptual mind. You're convinced that you must be going somewhere because you're running so fast. But if you're running in a circle, you're not going anywhere. And that's the I know mind. Calico and I were talking about this at the breakfast table today. The I already know this mind. How many of you have ever met someone who will come to something like this and they'll sit in the back and say, when they're going to talk about something that I don't know already, I already know this. I've already read this. I've already heard this. I already know it. Whenever you hear that, or whenever you feel that yourself, the call is to take a breath, fall back into the I don't know mind. Relax there. Because I promise you, the mind that says, I already know this, is the mind that has trapped you in the illusion of knowing, but not the experience of knowing. And this is the Namaste experience. But it begins with surrendering. It begins with relaxing into the I don't know. But there is one that does, and that one is within me now. And when we allow that one to take over, a high, bright light, reassociation occurs. I'm reassociated with the light that has always been so bright within me. But it must begin with the relaxing of the I know mind. I already know this. Now, of course, everything in reality is reversed to what the ego believes, because to the ego, the I don't know experience is one of weakness and one not to be admired. The ego has to know. In fact, this is its greatest defense, is to think it knows, to believe that it knows already. Just like a child, really. I mean, how many of us have had children in our lives that at the age of 4 are convinced they know, or at the age of maybe 12, they're able to admit, well, when I was 4, I didn't know, but I thought I did. Now I know. I'm 12 now. I know what's going on. And then, of course, to get to about 18. Now they really know. I remember when I was 18, and I was a freshman at university, and my father came to visit one day, and we spent maybe 2 days together. And the biggest thing that I realized is, gosh, my father has learned a lot in about 2 months. It had nothing to do with my father. It had to do with me moving into another level of my own awakening, which is always the experience of, well, I don't know what I think I know, but it's known within me. I may not know what I think I know, but it is known within me. And the more I relax into that which is already known within me, the brighter that light becomes in my mind, the more I can see that which has always seen me. So that's where we're going to go today, into that new bright light association. We could call it whole-mindedness. We could call it enlightenment. You could call it whatever you want to call it. You could call it asparagus. It doesn't matter. But it's the experience of that association of that high bright. It's like turning your brights on in a car. You're driving down a dark road and you can barely see, and suddenly you just click that little thing right there on the, what do you forget, that little bright switch. Maybe it's on the floor if you have an old car. Suddenly, whoosh, there it is. That's what this experience is. You're turning on your brights. Not so that other people will see you, but so that you will see everything. Not so that you can say, look how bright I shine, but so that you can see how bright the light is within others. So I want to share one of the Master Teacher Within lessons. And as you know, these begin with a question. In fact, let me just share the question first. The question in this situation is this: something is shifting and moving inside me. I can feel it very deep, like I'm shifting into a whole new way of being. I know these conversations, if that's what you want to call them, are a big part of that. But I'd like to understand what's happening with more clarity. Would all of you like to understand what's happening with more clarity? Yeah. Okay, good. And then what I would always say, I had a little prayer almost that I would say right after that, which is, I now open to the Master Teacher Within. Say that with me. I am now open to the Master Teacher Within, and the whole mind that is forever my own, and the whole mind that is forever my own. And I'll share in a moment what the conversation or dialogue was, but something very interesting that I've never told you would happen at the very end of these sessions. Now, as you already know, after I would ask that question and say that last part, I would just kind of fall asleep, or I would just sort of dissolve into a state of unconsciousness instantly. And when I would open my eyes again, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes later, I would see everything typed out on the screen, and I would read it for the first time. But at the end of each of those dialogues, there was something else that was very interesting. But to explain it, I need to back up a little bit. So we're going to talk about the scribing of A Course in Miracles for a moment. When Helen Schuckman began to hear this voice, and she would then write out in shorthand everything that she was hearing, she'd go in the next morning to the office, and Bill Thetford and she would close and lock the door, because of course they didn't want anybody to know what these prestigious psychologists were doing. And she would read from her shorthand what she had scribed the previous evening, and he would type it out. And it didn't take long, but it didn't happen instantaneously, because they were both Shakespeare fans. And you probably know that Shakespeare wrote in a poetic form a verse called iambic pentameter. Now, iambic pentameter repeats in 10 syllables each. So if you look at, say, the lesson title that we did a couple of days ago, "The peace of God is shining in me now." So stressed and unstressed, and always 10 syllables. And what they discovered is that they would go back and realize entire paragraphs, entire pages, even entire chapters were in perfect iambic pentameter. Now, writing iambic pentameter, even for someone with a brilliant mind like Shakespeare, takes a minute. We don't think in that form. especially in the depth that it was coming through with Helen. To me, it was one of the things that always told me this is the Christ mind, speaking directly into this experience. You know, I recently was challenged by someone in an institutional manner to basically deny this. I was being called to deny that this was, that A Course in Miracles was a transmission from the mind of Christ. Whatever that means, I'm not saying that I even know what that means or how that works. But the determination that this is beyond anything that I could recognize within a split reference point. And I won't do it. I don't care what it costs. I'm not going to deny that which I know to be true, just as you will never deny that which you know to be true. And I know this to be true. So the reason I'm telling you all this is because at the end of each one of these sessions where I would ask a question, I would fall into this state of unconsciousness. When I opened up my eyes, there would be the dialogue, but at the very end, there would be a poem in perfect iambic pentameter that would sum up everything that had just come before. So for the first time, I want to share that part of it, the iambic pentameter poem at the end. Then I'm going to go back and share. Okay? So the purpose of a verse like this is to lull the egoic mind into a state of rest. You're not listening to it in the same way. You're not hearing the words through your mind as much as you were hearing it as we would poetry or a song, which is almost like slipping in through the back door. This is the reason why I love to sing or to share a song in the midst of a talk, because when you're listening to me talk like this, everything you're hearing is coming in through the front door of your consciousness. And always right behind that front door are a series of filters based upon every idea you've ever had about what you believe to be true, what you think is wrong, every experience you've ever had, and you interpret what you hear through those filters. But when it slides into the back door, there are no filters. It enters into the heart whole. So let this slide into the back door. A new light shines, bright association. That sleeping in your mind, a newfound spark, a different force beyond expectation, a climb that's like no other in the dark. Ascending this mountain higher and higher, air grows thin, the weight of self increases. Air grows thin, the weight of self increases. A struggle that's unyielding like a fire. Burning now, it shakes your soul to pieces. But at the peak lies something so divine. A chance to shed the baggage you once bore. To leave behind and fully realign to God's embrace, where love will fill your core. The provisions you carried now are gone. A sense of lightness like you've never known. A freedom from the burdens you had on. A chance to fly and claim your godly throne. Let go of all that's holding you behind. Release the weight and soar up to the top. Leave all the uselessness of your mind. Transcend this world. Reach for the light. Don't stop. No. This was the direct answer to the question once again. Something is shifting and moving inside of me. I can feel it very deep, like I'm shifting into a whole new way of being. I know that these conversations, if that's what you want to call them, are a part of that. But I'd like to understand what's happening with more clarity. Here we go. You're beginning to feel a new level of bright light association coming into your mind. You're beginning to feel a whole new level of light, bright association that's coming into your mind. How many of you can feel that? How many of you, from just simply being in this presence, in this vortex, feel that light getting brighter in your mind? The energy of this is completely different from the world you've experienced before now. It's like climbing the highest mountain on earth. The higher you climb, the less oxygen you breathe, and the harder it is to perform the simplest tasks. But unlike climbing a mountain, this is the point at which you can release the baggage and the weight of your split identity, your egoic mind, and claim that which has always been offered you by God. At this point, you're beginning to experience the uselessness of the provisions you carried up the mountain. Let them go, and you'll fly instantly to the top. Hold on to nothing in this final stage, and you'll experience a lightness that transcends this world. Once again, hold on to nothing in this final stage, and you'll experience a lightness that transcends this world. It might be good for you to know that this is the final stage. It might be good for you to realize that you've come to a point where you can actually see the peak. And it would probably be a good idea at this point to just drop that heavy pack that you've been carrying on your back, with all of those provisions, all of those things that you thought you needed, that you can't even really claim anymore. All of the things in your own life that you thought you required, that you realize I never needed in the first place, really. Let them go and fly instantly to the top. They're weights, they're limitations of your mind. And this is that, as we were saying before, the I know mind. I know I might need this stuff. And you can't even breathe in the same way that you once did when you were at the base, when you were at the bottom. But you can breathe in a new way. So there's no need for us to try to cling to those old patterns and try and hold on to all the things that we thought would be so required. It's time to let it all go as we climb this mountain, as we look upon the peak, ready to fly. A bit more. As you embrace this new level of bright light association, you'll find that your mind is becoming clearer and more focused. Can you experience that? How many of you can relate to that? You're becoming even more clear, even more focused, but not in the way that you once were. Not focused on the particulars of how to make it work in this world. The particulars of how to make it work in the world of perception mean nothing to you now. Just let it go. You'll start to see things with greater clarity and understand the world in a whole new way. The energy of this shift is remarkable, and it's completely different from anything you've ever experienced before. As you continue to climb this mountain, you'll encounter obstacles and challenges that will test your resolve. But with each step, you'll become stronger, more resilient, and more determined to fly to the top. You'll realize that the journey itself is what's important, each step on that journey. And that each step is a step closer to the ultimate goal of total release into light, total dissolving into light. As you continue to climb higher, you'll find that the air is becoming thinner and that it's becoming harder to breathe in the old way. It's harder to breathe or to relate to anything as you once did, in other words. It's something else I'm sure you're all beginning to realize. Remember, these lessons are basically your final approach. We're making our final approach now. Please fasten your seatbelts and put your seats in the upright position. We're coming in for a landing. So it's important for us to prepare ourselves for the experience of being here now. Final approach into heaven. Once again, as you climb higher, you'll find that the air is becoming more thin and that it's becoming harder and harder to breathe in that old way. But despite this, you'll find that your spirit is becoming more alive and vibrant. You'll begin to feel a sense of joy and happiness that you've never experienced before. At this point, it's important to hold on to nothing. We keep coming back to that. Hold on to nothing. Let go of all the attachments that have held you back and allow yourself to experience the true freedom and lightness of being. You find that as you release these attachments, you're able to soar to the top of the mountain and experience a sense of wonder and awe that is beyond words. A new light shines, bright association that's sleeping in your mind, a newfound spark, a different force beyond expectation, a climb that's like no other out of the dark. So, what else is there to do? Where else is there to go? We're on this ship together because it's only one anyway. Your awakening is the awakening of all. The only one that needs to get this is me. So let's get this. It seems like we're joining together to get something, but it's really the realization that we never lost it. It's really the realization that there's no such thing as loss. There's only that bright light association into grace and unimagined grace. So, Vicky, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I would love to hear if you have a few words to share around this bright light association.
Well, first, Brother James, I want to say thank you. Really, thank you. Thank you for sharing the whole thing with us, with the poetry, with your process in it, because I trust that we all can track it. It may not be the same physical steps in our lives, but it's certainly the same steps of letting go, of releasing, of simplifying, of living. You know, it occurred to me how music, you were talking about things slip in the back door. And I recognize that we're living in a backdoor life. I am, and I bet many of us are, where we're allowing ourselves to receive what all of the clutter of our lives covered up. And that's why we simplify, because as we rest, the way we rest and listen to music, the way we rest and enjoy a sunset or enjoy something, we're in a receptive mode So all the things that we fill our days with are unnecessary. I've been thinking, it's like the word I've been using is, I want to live a fingertip life. I'm just being called to live with whatever's at my fingertips. No extra stuff, no extra muss, no extra fuss. Just whatever is at my fingertips, it's enough. Because everything else is in the way of that kind of symphony that we can all tune into. And the way you've tuned into it with this message and these messages, it's like a cascading shower of direction that is bringing us into that, what did Neil call dazzling grace? Or was it Scott? One of them. And it stayed with me because grace is dazzling, and we dull it with the things that we think we need, or things we think we have to do, or things we have to go and follow through on. We only need to be receptive now, just like love now. A backdoor life is receptive now to the music, to the song of light, the song of love, because it's always playing. And so I really only want to add thank you. Thank you for sharing all the steps in this unfoldment, because as a family, it is natural that we are tracking with you, each in our own form and way, but in essence, we're tracking the letting go of everything that is not essential to love and light. So that's really my message. Thank you for sharing it. And thank you for giving us an outline and a context that's very simple and very clear at the light that we're sensing, that we stay sensitive to that light. You know, whether it's, and each of us will do it in a way given us, whether it's I can take to my bed when I see I'm too cluttered, or we sit in there quiet, or we listen to music, or we listen and we join with the being in front of us, or we give whatever we have to the being or the presence in front of us. Because as we give, as we live in that awareness of the presence, that's all that comes into focus, and we recognize it in one another. And as we recognize it, it springs to life as grace. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Brother James. And thank you to all our family here, each one of us, because it's that foundation of joining that allows this greater presence to become more visible, and for each of us to simplify and let go of everything that isn't fingertips, that isn't necessary, if it's cumbersome. What was helpful yesterday is cumbersome today. And to allow that to simply fall away by grace. So thanks, Brother James. Thank you, everyone. I love you. Thank you.
Yes. Let it fall away. Let it dissolve. You don't need that backpack. You don't need all that weight. You don't need those provisions anymore. All the things you needed in the valley are no longer needed on the mountaintop. And this is also, to sum up something that I heard you say, Vicki, this is simply about different angles of approach. Like, for example, in what we read here today, the dialogue, the basic message, but then there's that poem at the end, because you're going to hear it. It's the same message, but you're going to hear it from a different angle. Or if Vicki shares after I share, or Scott comes up and sings a song, you're going to hear Scott singing the same message, but you're going to hear it from a different angle. And maybe this angle will work for Kara, but maybe Gary's going to catch it from another angle. Whatever angle it is, catch it. Receive this, accept this. I think that's really the beauty of what we do here every day, is we have different angles that are coming at the same truth. That's why I love to have Vicki share, and Scott, and anyone else, to have Larry share on Sunday, to have Neil come on Thursdays. We're having the same message over and over and over, like the heartbeat, a pulse, reminding us it's time to open your eyes and return home. So, as a way of closing, I realized that I didn't open in the way that we have been. So I thought maybe we'll just close in that way. How does that sound? So I'll tell you what, now make sure all of you Zoomers stay muted because there's a delay. If you're unmuted and you're saying this, there's a delay and it throws it all off. So let me go ahead and put this up on screen and we will share this together. Here we go. My soul has but one goal, to awaken to the truth that is forever true. My heart has but one desire, to remember the passion of infinite bliss. My mind has but one focus, to embrace the reality that is forever real. I choose to awaken now to the infinite love that is my source. I give everything to this love, just as it has given everything to me. I am awake now. How is everyone today? Awake and ready. How feels everyone today? Awake and ready. Amen, 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 y punto.
Punto.
There you go. We are awake and
Love
ready.
you all.
Let's go out and live it now. Happy Friday to all of you.
Yes,
Make sure you
Blessed
come back on
Friday.
Sunday at noon for
thank you.
I love you all.
Love you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Happy
weekend.
Friday.
Thank
Love
you.
to all.
See you next
I love
week.
you all.
Glad
Thank
we are
you.
one.
See ya.
Can't get a
Bye-bye.
word.
Wonderful weekend. See you Saturday, some of you.
Love you.
Yeah.
love you.
Never mind.
Love you.
Come on Sunday.
God bless.
Bye, everybody.